You know what's tough is, for those that know about college football, is to be surrounded by Arizona Wildcats.
Bear down.
It's okay. I'm a Sun Devil, by heart and by trade. When I see the Wildcats around, it kind of brings back memories. And every now and then, I feel like I still had one good hit in me. But fortunately for these two guys, they both play defense, so I don't really hit them. I too, as you listen to Tony, I played safety as well. The size difference kind of shocks people, but we all have the same intentions, and some of our stories are similar. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California, and I remember as a young kid growing up, my dad used to always have these do's and don'ts. And sometimes do's and don'ts don't mean bad things, they mean good things. The do's, do what's necessary to be the best person you can be. And Tony said, take advantage of all the opportunities that you get. Don't forget where you come from. Being from Los Angeles, California, and being raised in an environment that was tough, I've never forgot where I came from. I'm appreciative of the things that I've had, the things that I have. I'm appreciative that I have a wife. I brought my wife and my daughter with me another year at Walter Camp. I'm appreciative to be a former All-American and to be part of a family that if anything ever happened to me outside my own family, I know I have a place here in New Haven with the Walter Camp family. And like Tony said about people that you meet and you come across, I met a guy, I don't know how many years it is now, at Walter Camp. I was seeing Dan, like a little brother. We were on the bus the other day talking and playing, and I'm 46, Dan I think is 27, and my son David, who's here, senior in high school, he's 18, and I can see him and Dan playing like my son and I play. And then I'm playing with Dan as if he was my own son, and just kind of building relationships. And the one thing that I used to tell my son in football, my son was a senior, running back in Mason, Cincinnati, recruited by a few schools, had some issues in school with grades and still have to get those things ironed out before he has an opportunity to go to college. But I used to say to him, when you play football, there's two ways of being a football player. You can be a good football player, or you can be a great football player. On Friday nights, or Friday afternoons before their pregame, before they get started, I used to text him, and I said, what are you going to do today? You're going to be good, you're going to be great. And he asked me, well, what do you mean, Dad? I said, well, everybody on the football feels good, because if you wasn't a good football player, you wouldn't be out there. I said, but if you're going to be that great football player, that's the guy that people say, wow, did you see that? Just like in life. When people see you, when you do things, they go, wow, did you see that performance? Did you see how hard he worked? Did you see the things that he has done since he's retired from football? And the people that make a difference are the ones that give back. 13 years ago, or now 14 years now, my wife Judy was on her way to work. And just as happy as she could be. My daughter Kayla was a year old, and gave her a kiss as she walked out the door. And about 20 minutes later, I get a phone call, and it's her on the phone, and I can't feel my left side. Something's wrong. The next thing I know, I hear the phone drop, and I hear her screaming. And I can hear her telling me where she was. So as I drove there, and I noticed that she was being taken out of the ambulance, or out of the car, into the ambulance, she was paralyzed. No clue, we had no reason of what was going on. Months later, she was diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis. And it kind of hit us pretty hard because here's this healthy lively young lady, just as happy as she could be, and all of a sudden now, we're struggling. And, once again, we're all dealt with situations and certain things that are tough. And still today, we still deal with that. But I think what God has given us an opportunity to do is to let people know that when you're dealing with bad cards, you still got to play. And you still have to run with the football even though you may be down. And we've been down. And I think over the last 14 years, we have started our own foundation benefiting in this to the point where we try to help those families that are in need with the monies that we raise. And we do a lot of things. We don't just do because it benefits us. And that's the one thing that I, as a man, appreciates the positive and the energy that my wife gives to my household. And I know sometimes, guys, we try to be tough and we want to be the men, but the women do rule the household. I am standing here letting you know that is true. I'm not saying it because she's standing there, she's sitting there. It is true. So don't be trying to damn. But it is true. And for us fathers and us young men, respect our women. Respect our sisters, respect our mothers, respect our girlfriends, respect our wives. It's very important as a young man who's sitting here now, still in high school and about to finish high school and maybe go to that next level in college. Those do's and don'ts that my dad told me as a young kid. Now, when I left high school back in 1982, I was 6 feet tall, 185-pound wide receiver, and wanted to play wide receiver in college as well as in the pros. There were two schools in my hometown, USC and UCLA, who told me that I wasn't good enough to play on their respective football teams. But it was a thing that my dad told me, don't let somebody tell you can't do. And the only school that recruited me to be a wide receiver was Arizona State. So I thought, one, I have an older brother who was a quarterback. Tell you may not know this, but he was at the University of Arizona. And I didn't want to play with my brother, but I wanted to play against my brother. So I started thinking, what other Pac-10 school can I go to play against my brother besides UCLA and USC? So Arizona State wanted me to play wide receiver, so I signed a letter of intent to go to Arizona State. But when I got there, they had other things on their mind. And it was, well, we wanted you to play wide receiver, and that's what you wanted, but we thought you'd be a better safety. So when I got there, 3 weeks later, I started playing safety. Now, once again, don't allow people to knock you down, tell you that you can't do things that you want to do. So I kind of got a little angry. Not angry to the point where I would destroy things, but those receivers that were once my friends that I used to work out with, now I had to hit them. And then I would hit them to a point where my coaches would say, we got to get him off the field because we need these guys for Saturday. It's hurting everybody. So I couldn't practice. But I started learning that, this ability that I have is a very powerful ability to do some things that I love to do. And I love playing the game of football. And after my freshman year, I redshirted, and then I became a starter my sophomore year. I became a consistent All-American, and I made everybody's All-American team, and things started happening for David. But the one thing I didn't forget about is where I came from. I used to always go back to my communities in Los Angeles and try to do something special. I remember one of the parks that I grew up in playing ball in was run down. And I went to high school with a couple of baseball stars, Eric Davis that played for the Reds, and Gerald Strawberry that played for the Yankees. We all grew up together. So we would go back to our communities and do some things and try to make some things happen in the park that we grew up in. And as I became a professional athlete, I'd always go back to that particular park and donate and try to help and raise monies and do some things for that community. But I also remember that when I left Arizona State and I got drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals, and I hope there's not any Mel Kiper fans in here. But Mel Kiper said to me, there's no way that this guy who's 6'3", 225 pounds, could play in the National Football League. There's that do and that don't, you can't do it. And I took those words from Mel Kiper and said, I just want an opportunity. I just want a chance. The Bengals drafted me, they needed a safety. And back then, 235, 240 pound safeties obviously weren't playing in the league. Those guys were linebackers. I made a difference when I came to the NFL. Changed that position. And those that told me that I couldn't do, 8 years later, 3 Pro Bowls later, 1 Super Bowl, and 1 defensive back player of the year in 1989, I showed them that I can do it. And I didn't allow them to knock my spirits down. And I say this to you young men that are sitting here today, when you step out on the football field, give it your best, give it your all. When you step out in life, because not everybody in here is going to become that college football player or that professional football player. But it's about life. It's about giving. Don't forget where you came from. Give back to the people that have given to you. Surround yourself, as Tony said, around positive people. I also have another program that I work with inmates in Cincinnati. And I always hear these excuses and stories about, well, my dad went to jail. My uncle went to jail. My dad did this. It forced me to do that. No, it didn't. You do what you need to do to make it right. You continue to keep working hard to be the best person that you can be. For years that I've been here in New Haven, I remember my first trip to New Haven. The very first person I met when I got off the plane. I think he just walked out. Tom Logan. I'm coming from Arizona. It's 75, 80, 90 degrees. I come here in 85 and I get off the plane with a tank top, flip-flops, and a pair of pants MC Hammer used to wear. And inside, 20 degrees. And inside my bag was about 8 outfits like that. So when they opened up that plane, and I felt that wind come out from underneath that door, I had no clue where I was. And it opened my eyes and my heart to obviously being in some cold weather. But it brought me to a point where I started to realize at 19 years old, I've got to grow up and understand that, I'm not that little boy anymore. And I got to do things the right way and continue to keep striving. Thank you, Dan, again, for letting me come out. I'm going to be here as long as I can. And for years, I know Dan has allowed me to, I have this little bobblehead of myself that I had made for my foundation that raises money for MS. In the years I come here, I brought those bobbleheads with me to help those families in need. So, and I know Dan has his foundation, and I will help in any way I can. So if anybody would like to have one of those bobbleheads or purchase one of those bobbleheads, thank you for allowing me to do that. I'll have them available to sign if anybody wants one at the end of this program. But once again, guys, you are in good hands here. This is a great family to be a part of. It's a great organization, and you couldn't ask for any better of these guys who walk around with the tags on. They're reaching out. It's a family, and it's probably one of the best All-American teams that I've been associated with. And I was on everybody's All-American team when I was in college. But this is by far the best family-run business organization that's out there. Thanks again.